Hello everyone, it's Karen at the Cool Tool Studio. Today I'm going to be using stone setting molds to create a beginner-friendly pendant. I love this project because they're really simple to create, don't use much clay, and look great as a grouping or series. This project is beginner-friendly and doesn't use a ton of tools, but if you need to add any of these tools to your collection, there's going to be a link posted in the description below the video. Today I'm working with a work surface, a snake maker, a silicone clay shaper, a pair of tweezers, a tissue blade, and a disposable applicator, some tough cards, a dish for water, and a brush, and my favorite clay, EZ960 sterling clay. I'm using a finishing touches mold, the elm leaf, and then I'm also going to be working with setting molds. These setting molds are a wonderful addition to your metal clay toolbox and library of tricks. They make it easy and simple to create professional looking settings for fire and place stones, and I just really enjoy using them. Each shape has 3 different sizes and 2 styles of settings that can be made. They're coordinated to the size stones, so if you want to set a 6mm stone, you use the 6mm setting size, and then you have the option to make either a setting with some prong elements or just a straightforward bezel. If you are using the prong element ones, there's little pre-calibrated notches on the bottom that you also fill with clay when you fill the mold. So today I'm working with a 6x8mm lavender nano gem, and I'm going to be doing the prong style setting. So I've got some fresh EZ960 clay here, and it's better if you use fresh or freshly reconstituted. If your clay is too dry, it's going to have a harder time getting all the way down into this mold, and you're going to have some just cracks and discrepancies on the surface of your mold there. So you don't want to have too much clay, just kind of a little ball, and then I like to set it on top and then press straight down. If you press at an angle, the little center for the azure here will get pushed off center. You can use a clay scraper, a tissue blade, a palette knife, a finger, whatever you have on hand, and you're just wanting to press down and in. And then you want to scrape the surface clear of any extra clay. And for this, again, so I don't end up scooting the little center plug in that mold off center, I kind of start at the middle and drag out, and then drag out. And then again, I want to create little caps to go up and over my stone there. So I'm taking some more clay there and using the tissue blade, palette knife, whatever you have handy, to fill and then scrape away the excess. So just like that, I'm going to have my setting. So now my setting is ready to dry, and you want to make sure that you allow it to dry completely before you try to remove it. Pulling it out before it's dry is going to distort the form and shape, and sometimes it can lead to kind of a streaky appearance on the outside edge of your setting from the drag against the mold. You don't need to use any mold release with these settings molds because you are removing the clay once it's completely dry. While we're waiting on that to dry, I'm going to make a little leaf element to accent my pendant. And just like before, I'm not using any cool slip or anything like that, and I'm just pressing some clay down into the low area on my mold and scraping away the excess. So this is going to go join the setting mold on the hot plate to dry, and then we'll be ready to set the stone and start assembly. Once your setting has dried, you can remove it from your mold, and for this I just kind of flex it a little bit and then use my fingers to kind of wiggle it and pull it up and out. And then I'm actually glad this happened because this is kind of a troubleshooting thing. Sometimes it won't be absolutely perfect, usually it is, but if there is a slight area that is missing some clay, you don't have to reconstitute this whole thing or anything. What you can do is just take a brush, dampen that specific area, and then I just have a little extra clay here. I'm just going to place it generally where it should go. And then it's going to go back into the mold. And I'm really going to kind of press down to make sure that that top face that was missing the material is going to make contact with that bottom of my mold to smooth all that out. And I'm going to let that dry again. And again, usually it doesn't happen, but sometimes, especially on these larger molds, that's a lot of material to have to fill in there. And if there is ever a part that's missing, it's a really simple fix. So now that little correction has hopefully dried. And now we're ready to set our stone. So I just use my fingers. If you're using a smaller stone and it's easier, you can use a pair of tweezers, but I just kind of very gently press it in. And like anytime you're doing a fire in place setting, you want to make sure that the girdle of your stone is below your clay. That way as it shrinks, it's going to shrink to set and not kind of pop your stone out and eject it. So I kind of look at it and make sure that it's looking like it's sitting nice and flat, it's not crooked, and then we're ready to add the little elements on the top that kind of look like a bent over prong. And for those, I just pop them out with tweezers. I'll bring them over to my tough card. And then I'm going to mix up just a little bit of paste. So I'm just taking some of my lump clay. You can use syringe if you have it. You can use pre-made paste. But if you're just working with a package of clay, you can just take a silicone clay shaper and kind of press some water into your lump clay. And then I'll just take a slightly damp brush and pick up some material. And then there's two options for this. You can either take the material and apply it to the top of the setting there, and then use tweezers to pick up in place. And the tops here have a flat side and a rounded side, and the rounded side matches the profile that comes up along the side here, so we want the flat side facing in over our stone. And just use the tweezers to kind of scoot until you're happy with it and press down. And then I'll take my damp brush and really quickly run it along to kind of smooth out that transition. If you need to fill with some more paste, you can pick some more up at this time. But you don't want to add too much paste because then things can get kind of messy looking. But usually I'll allow it to dry and then kind of examine and see if I need to add more. And then the other option for applying these prongs is to take the prong itself with a little prong cap and then kind of dip it or scrape it along, whatever you need to do to pick up some paste on the underside of the prong and then place it. So whichever method feels more natural to you. And again, just kind of scooting around until it's lining up nicely out here and looking good. And smoothing with a brush. And then I'm going to repeat that process to the other two remaining little caps here and then allow it to dry completely. So now I'm ready to create my little coil for my bail, and then I'll be adding my little leaf element. So I'm going to pop this guy out of the mold and then clear up some space on my work surface here. And I'm going to be making my coil, so I have a little snake maker or acrylic sheet, and I didn't put any cool slip or anything on my work surface because you need a little bit of stick and drag when you're coiling. And you just kind of do a gentle back and forth, side to side motion while applying some downward pressure. And since I'm kind of hoping to make this organic and have a little taper at the end, I'm not using any supports or anything like that. And I'm kind of angling down a little bit on one side. Oops. If you ever flatten them, you can kind of just pinch along the side to round it out a little bit, and that'll help it catch again when you're rolling and it'll round right back out. So that'll be plenty long enough. And then at this point, you just need something round to wrap around. I always just use these little disposable applicator brushes, but just one thing to note is you want to make sure that your bail can accommodate the chain that you have on hand. So unless you're buying a chain to match the hole, you want to make sure that you're going to make the hole for the chain big enough. So for this, it's just kind of organic, and however you want it to be, you can wrap it multiple times, just once. I'll usually kind of start by pressing a little bit to get it to sort of stick, and then just kind of wrap it around. And then once I have that kind of generally established, I'm going to end up trimming off some extra, but I'm going to bring it over, start kind of planning it. I've got a damp brush here, and I'm going to end up kind of joining these two coils together. So I'm going to start by dampening that, kind of squishing them together. And then I'm going to kind of roll to, I kind of want the vine up and over a little bit on the end there. Again, there's no wrong or right way to do this. It's kind of an organic process. Just scoot a little bit. And just kind of plan it out. Once this is dried, you can come back and reinforce all those connections. And trim is needed. Maybe, yeah, I'm gonna bring it over a little bit. Just kind of whatever you think is gonna look nice and balance nicely. And then at this point, I'm gonna allow that to dry before I add my little leaf. So I'm going to scoot him to the side and take everyone else off to dry. So this is dried, and now I'm just going to kind of gently wiggle my little disposable applicator or whatever drying armature you are using. And then we're going to mix up a little bit of paste to solidify those connections. And then we'll also use it to add our little leaf element. And again, pre-made is fine, syringe is fine, but I'm just working as though we're just getting started and just have our lump clay. And I'm gonna kind of pick it up and look at it from the back and sides and just add some material to help stabilize this connection. So I'm gonna use my brush. I'm going to come in back here and fill just a little bit. Easy 960 does make really strong connections with water, but for a load-bearing connection, I always want to make sure there's some paste present. So I'm just kind of running it along and pushing it in from the side under there. Kind of pressing in and then smoothing out. So then before I actually put any paste on my leaf, I'm just going to use my tweezers to kind of shop for composition, what I think looks best. You can kind of have it here maybe. Always kind of try at least 3 things. Just because sometimes you think you know how you want things to look, and then you'll try something different, and oh, that actually looks nice. I think for this one, I'm actually going to kind of center it a little bit higher up and have it kind of pointed off to the side. And again, I feel like each time I make these, they're a little bit different just because the organic nature of the vine, and then, you know, to complement whatever form you already have and the balance of it. Things can end up in different spots. So for this, I'm going to put the paste on the back of my leaf. And I'm going to support my bail as I'm applying some pressure to apply my leaf. I'm just going to scoot it a little bit more, kind of send some more movement and direction that way. And then I'm going to allow all of this to dry. So my pendant is dry, and there shouldn't be too much refinement that you need to do since this piece is primarily molded components that were assembled. But if you do find that you need to do some refinement, the sanding pads will do for you. I just have a microfine out because I was just going to go over the places where I used some paste to bridge connections. But again, this project is pretty straightforward and mostly nicely molded components and shouldn't require too much refinement. Once your pieces are refined, you're ready to fire, and don't forget, anytime that you're firing a stone in place, you want to clean your stone prior to firing. And conveniently enough, I still have my disposable applicator handy here, and I'll just put some alcohol on it, and I will clean both the front and the back of my piece with alcohol. And then depending on what clay you're using, you want to fire your piece to the instructions in the packaging. My stone can go up to 1675 because I'm firing an Easy 960, and I'm going to fire to 1675 and hold for 2 hours. I really enjoyed these simple but lovely pendants. There's something fun about this type of bail and how each time you make them, they're a little bit different. I just love making them, and I hope you will too. Thanks for watching.